продовжуємо робочий.
Of course, we continue our working day, and the topic of our next press conference, Odessa, 2nd of May, 2 years after the tragedy, why the situation is tense again. And our guests are the members of the May 2nd group, Tetyana Gerasymova, journalist, member of this group, Vladyslav Balynskyi, expert-chemist, the member of the same group, and Yuriy Mukan, expert on arms and ammunition. The floor is yours. Good day. On 2nd of May, there will be we will make the conclusions of our 2 years work of the tragic events that happened on 2nd of May in our beloved city. And at the same time happened the next stage of the investigation of these events. From one side, it is sad, but from other side it gives us hope. What do I mean? And I will start from the official investigation. Unfortunately, for the previous 2 years, we are sure that the prosecutor's office and the General Investigation Office completely failed the investigation of mass disorders in Odessa in 2014. And because of that, January this year, the members of our group were here at press conference and they expressed distrust to the General Prosecutor's Office and police. And the next day, the investigation that was fruitless by the Investigation Office of Ukraine was transferred to Odessa. And the investigators of our Department of National Police of Ukraine. And 2 days ago, we had the first press conference of the investigative department. And during the 3 months, Odessa investigators could do more than the whole group of the investigators from Chief Investigation Department of Ukraine, who for 1 year and a half were sitting in Odessa on business trips. They were getting their salaries. But after that, the first and second manager of the investigative operations groups just went into retirement and investigation was stopped. Unfortunately, this situation led to the humiliating, catastrophic situation in the court, where to date 20 blamed people are, because prosecutor gave to the court 30 kilos of wasted paper instead of normal materials with proofs. It wasn't difficult to collect all this proof because we could ask for the hearing of the talks at Kulikova field. Also, we could order the expertise, and during 1 week to identify few participants more of the mass disorders. It wasn't done, and we think that it was a crime, because unfortunately what happened to investigation, this imitation of the investigation, influenced a lot to the general situation in Odessa. Because the conflict, the peak of which was on the 2nd May, didn't disappear. It just went deeper. And only adequate investigation, objective investigation, and court investigation could help to solve this conflict and to make a dialogue. Unfortunately, it didn't happen. And today the situation in the city is dangerous, is complicated. Of course, it's not the only reason. There are few reasons, including very powerful information war started by the Russian media that presented the events of 2nd of May today as a kind of sacred victimization of Ukrainian assets in the House of Trade Unions, and the events in the center of the city were ignored completely. When activists of private sector died from the shoots, the fighter of self-defense also died. And provocation of Odessa team led to those bloody fights. And this information war is more tense because General Prosecutor's Office Investigation Department don't do anything. Also these days we presented to the citizens the results of our own investigation and our work. And in our work, we precise the chronology of the events that happened in the city center. We managed to precise the time of death of Igor Ivanov, activist of private sector, and Andrei Biryukov, activist of Euromaidan, but still a lot of issues are not clear. Also among our achievements are as the actions of Vladyslav Balynskyi. He could manage to make expertise of the building of trade union building to describe the fire dynamics, and it allowed us to answer the question why people died in the building. And Yuriy Mukan, as he is a specialist on arms and ammunition, he systemized information on the weapon that was used in Odessa. And he found the fire positions in the trade union building, and these facts allowed us today the lies of the Russian propaganda that there were some innocent people in this building and evil Bandera people could fire them. That's why I give the floor to Vladyslav Balynskyi. Good afternoon. I wanted to add Tetyana's words about the situation. And also there were few people who speculated on the situation and made the situation more intense from inside, because we all remember the events of 9th of May last year when on the Glory Alley a non-sanctions pro-Russian rally was organized by Maurice Ibrahim, and the authorities just quietly agreed it to happen. And in particular during the year we could see the gathering of the political forces, and they were used as a pre-election platform because mayor elections were coming, and some political forces were using it because they appealed to vote for concrete candidates. And as for me, it also helped to make the situation worse. And also we heard from Skorik that they invited Euro deputies for this day in Odessa. Of course, I think it's not moral, because those people who call themselves the Union of Mothers, representing the people died on 2nd of May, they are not the mothers, and they just speculate on the blood of people And about the investigation itself, the most serious problem was the breach of initial collection of information for further object investigation. When people were detained, the samples were not taken. I mean the samples of the ash and other materials from their clothes. And at the detention of people, there are witnesses of anti-Maidan people themselves that some policemen asked them to leave the knives and other weapons in the cars and buses, and because of that we couldn't find out who of them participated actively in the events, who was shooting, who used explosion devices, so on and so forth. Yuri will tell you more about it later. And about the building of trade union itself, about the fire, as you know, 48 people died that day. 42 out of them died in the trade union building or next to it. 8 people died because they've fallen down from the windows. The rest died in the building or in the hospital after it happened. One of the biggest problems was the collection of information in the building straight after the fire, because in 2-3 days after the fire, the building was open for free access, and parts of the proofs were destroyed. But I managed to collect a lot of photos, a lot of videos. We can analyze it later. And I made my conclusion based on it. And the fire, as we defined it, we could define the time when fire started. We could define the dynamics of the fire. The only thing we couldn't do who of the people was guilty in starting the firing, because there was an active fight next to barricade and Molotov cocktails were used from 2 sides. And from the building of trade union there was shooting. So take into consideration the localization of fire. We understood it was due to Molotov cocktail, but was it a direct push from the square, or maybe it went from the whole of the building of trade union? We can't answer this question. But as a consequence, this big barricade that anti-Maidan Kulikov people collected due to some unclear reasons was on fire quickly, and the fire dynamics was going on stages in such a way that after first shot phase that lasts just for 9 minutes, and firing started at 7:44 p.m. and a lot of rest of the barricade exploded quickly, and as a result the walls were on fire. That is the place where the biggest number of people was, and as it was sudden outburst for them, they should jump from the windows or people died. When we created already, based on the expertise, the dynamic model of fire, we compared it with the map of body's location and with the witnesses of the people who were inside. And of course, we connected it to the plan of the building, and also we used those conclusions of medical experts. Now we have a complete description of the event of every dead person, his location before the death, and correspondingly the reasons of their death. Also, I want to say one more important aspect.
They lit the tents, and the actions of those who support Euromaidan, we analyzed the actions, the main wish, and the goal to come to Kulikovo Pole, Kulikovo field, was to remove this tent village. So these tents were set on fire, and this was at 7:30 p.m. Then there was a signal at firefighting station, and firefighters came in 40 minutes. So the first stage of the fire was over already. And the transition time, when the majority of people died between first and second, this period passed. And if firefighters would came earlier, they could save lives, even in 20 minutes after they were called. They would come before the second phase, and they would extinguish fire, and it could prevent the victims. And in 20 minutes, they could come from other part of the city, and they needed to cover about 200 or 300 meters. So this was the main reason of big number of victims. Also, I would like to say that we clearly identified the course of this fire, and the Council of Europe also informed on this, and prosecutor's office also took this evidence, and we didn't succeed in publishing forensics examination on each individual, and if people knew, especially those who live in Odessa, that would improve the situation. Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm responsible the issues of the use of arms and the arms that were used on the 2nd of May in clashes. So the both sides, the both groups of people that counteract each other, they used weapons against the other group. So these were traumatic weapons and also battle weapons. So what weapon was used? At the start, these were so what types of arms and systems were used and where they were used, and what was the damage to the health of people. The first fact of the use of weapons was the attempt to shoot at people at Alexandrovsky Avenue, those who sided with those who are in Kulikov Field. But the person who shot was detained by pedestrians, and he was handed into police. And his affiliation was not identified, and we don't know who this person is. That's why we can tell what side started firing. Maybe that was a provocateur who wanted to show the first instance of using the weapons. And in Grechensky Street, there was the use of explosives. Then there was the use of firearms. So first Flaubert guns, traumatic guns, and further we see the use of hunting weapons and Kalashnikov system guns. So this is AKS-U 545. So maybe some modifications were made to this, and it was used like hunting carabine for candle, Vulcan TK, it is called. Then in trade unions business, the weapons were used, and in video we may see that this is carabine, and one of pro-Maidan activists was injured because of this weapon, and also the members of our group identified the firing position that was established in the building of a trade unions building, and it provided support, and this position was established wisely. So there was a special hole in the window for shooting, and the gunner could control all the approaching ways from the rear of the building. Also, that was not only the position. The gunner made a shot from the building, and we established that the caliber was 7.62, and there was a shot made. There is a hole in the window, so we know that this shot came from the trade union's business. Also on the front of the building, we saw it on the video that different weapons were used, and we believe that these were carabine or some hunting rifles. And I would like to tell about shooting that took life of Igor Ivanov, because the system was used. Kalashnikov gun was used. This is a military weapon, and from both sides, this was the most powerful weapon, heavy weapon that was used by the sides. And the person who shot from this gun, he was identified as Vitaly Budko. Botsman was his nickname. And he shot repeatedly about 11 shots. And the proponents at Kulikov field, they say that he delivered fire with blanks, but we can say that he shot with the battle shots. So we say this because for the operation of this gun, they need special attachment to this gun, special modification to have more power gas pressure to reload the gun. And we see on the video that this person, he didn't recharge the gun by hand, so this was automatic shooting. So battle shots were used. Also, at the place of firing, we found some shells and bullets that had the signs, and that was evident that this bullet was shot from that gun. Also, Igor Ivanov died because of that bullet. And on the video, this was the only system that was used that day, and the wound was made by this gun, and Vitaly Buchko shot, and this person's nickname was Botsman. And we think that this was the lethal shot that led to the death of this man. And moreover, the proponents of Kulikova field, they say that he bought this Kalashnikov gun, and it was a simulator gun, and it didn't, that it wasn't dangerous. But we see that this is a battle gun, and we see that there are gunpowder gases. And if this barrel is blocked, then there won't be. So if the barrel is welded, so it wouldn't be possible. And all the excess of the gunpowder gas while recharging the gun. So these powder gases, they would be directed to the face of the those person who shoot, and he would burn his face. Moreover, our group also, we do not agree with the official examination because it was incorrectly carried out, and about the conclusions as of these types of weapons. Unfortunately, an expert that carried out examination of machine gun and weapons and ammunition that was there, he says that this was not a battle shell, but that was a shot 5.45, and he make a conclusion that this Buchko shot from carabine, not with battle weapons. And I disagree, because if we have 5.45 system, the modification on their basis, you can use any ammunition of this caliber and use this shot. Moreover, we see an interesting moment. At the end of clashes in Grechenska, we see that this Botsman, the shooter, he leaves the territory without his gun. And we paid attention to it, and we tried to find out where he hid this gun. And the law enforcers, they didn't provide any information on our requests, and we didn't know whether they found this machine gun. But then we succeeded in our search. The members of the group found a car, Niva, white color, and the driver of this car, he was a commander of the it was Surikov, commander of the tent camp in Kulikova field, who took the gun from Botsman, and he took this gun and took it out from the conflict area, and the boatsman left in the ambulance car this place of clash. Surikov and Budko, they were driving in the streets of the city, and they were seen in Kulikov field, and we don't know about the destiny of this weapon, what happened with it. And we are not professionals, but we show to the investigators that it is important to find that car, and also that drove this weapon away from the area of clashes. Also, the positions, firing positions in the trade union building, and the hole from the bullet. After 2 weeks of searching, we find out that investigative commission that carry out investigation, they didn't document this evidence. And we had to ask investigator and to draw their attention to it so that they fix these evidence. So this is about weapons in short. Thank you. And I would like to sum up. We are concerned about unprecedented information war that in several 2 years was intensified, and we see it in Russian channels, we see films. In Europe, there are festivals, and they spread incorrect information and lists of 56 those who died, and the books, and so on and so forth. Some conferences are held at the top level. So we believe that we should fight against these actions, and our Ukrainian journalists should not take part in these campaigns. And in Novo Vremya magazine, I read an article of one journalist, and he wrote that this is the anniversary of May 2nd fire. They do not write in Russia about clashes in the Basovsk and that Igor Ivanov was killed. So they represented the situation differently. For example, if they would present the tragedy in the trade union building in Kiev as the only action in Euromaidan. So this is what happened in Odessa is an example of hybrid war, and we now clearly see that information war is one of the effective components of the hybrid war of Russia against our state. And I call on Kiev journalists to be very careful, because every incorrect word, it reflects on people, and we fight this injustice, we fight this information war by only facts. And we pay a lot of attention to such details as the caliber of ammunition and so on and so forth, because this is the only thing we can do to counteract this lie and disinformation that this disinformation that kill innocent people. So I would like to ask Kiev journalists for help, and you should draw attention of the public to the events that happened on the 2nd of May in Odessa, and together by joint effort we will do everything possible in order that Odessa is a wonderful Ukrainian city. Please introduce yourself first. Good afternoon, Maria Zavyalova, Громадське Radio. I have two questions. The first one, as to information on the firing position, and the firefighters came only in 40 minutes. What about the response to these facts? As to actions of firefighters, in December 2014, we filed a case to the prosecutor's office, and they answered that the criminal action was started on the request of the Marka Gordienko, and we know that this criminal case, former head of the emergency service in Odessa, Vladimir Badylan, is a suspect in this case, and the General Prosecutor's Office conduct this case. And also, for a year, we are trying to do something about starting criminal case against Petra Sergeyevича Lutsuk, who didn't introduce the operative press wave, that is called, and didn't localize the clashes in Deribasovska, and didn't prevent bloodshed. And we believe that Badylan and he is responsible for these clashes in Odessa. And the criminal investigation was started, and there is a guilty conclusion, and this case is in one of the courts of Odessa, and Petr Sergeyevich should come to court. At court hearing, he is free. He came for investigation proceedings, and now he should come to court and tell all the truth about what happened on the 2nd of May. We believe that we do not know many things, with whom he carried out negotiations, to whom he phoned, with whom he negotiated and took advice, and who didn't allow him to introduce wave plan, and why didn't he do it by his own initiative. So the key issues on 2nd May tragedy in Odessa, they are not resolved, and we continue our work. We continue to monitor the investigation and court hearing, and we inform the public on this. I have a comment. I was in Odessa after these events, and the trade union's house was open, and people went there. They destroyed the evidence. Is something being done with it? Unfortunately, so there is no responsibility because they opened this trade union house in the course of investigation. So these criminal cases, they are started because the public demand these investigations. And we should start also investigation on how these events were investigated and how the destruction of evidence happened. It was not only in the trade house building, it was opened right after the bodies were taken out. And it was opened for a month, and then the repair work started. And in Kulikov field, no one tried to save this evidence. People came there. This was a place to commemorate those who suffered there, and a place where people came. So we fixed these firing positions, and we also fixed the evidence of fire. Today the walls are clear now, and you cannot reconstruct the situation. So the center of the city was also cleared, Deribasovska, Grechevska Square, and early in the morning of the 3rd of May, the janitors of Primorsky region, they just swept all this away. They washed out the blood, and Maybe there were some weapons, because in Kulikov field there were weapons. Some pedestrians, they just found some weapons and some shells or shots. So everything was destroyed. And who did this and who gave the order to this? We don't know. And we believe, and this is principle, to find out, because for 1.5 years the group of chief investigative department headed by Nikolai Nurudnitsky, why they didn't do anything during this time. So this is a very important question. Do you know something about the person who shot? So Sergei Dyak, he is one of the activists of right sector. In his hands, as they say, they should prove it in the court. There was a hunting gun. In 1.5 hours after the first person died, 2 persons died, Igor Ivanov and Andrei Biryukov. And he shot a little bit further in near Afina Trading Center, and he is accused of killing 2 people. He injured Lysinsky and killed Alexander Zhulkov, and also the journalist Oleg Konstantinov also was wounded by this weapon, and one of the policemen. Hadyak was first detained, then he was escorted to Kiev. Here he was in detention facility, then he was sent to Odessa. And in Kiev, he was released at the pressure of activists. He was released from custody, and he was at home and under home arrest. Then this person goes to Malinovsky Sud. He takes active part in different actions. Anti-Trukhanov Maidan, he was seen there. And also court proceedings are not carried out in relation to this person. It seems that the judges want to get rid of this case. There was one attempt to carry out court hearing, but there were some deputies from Svoboda party, Igor Moisychuk, and he demanded that everyone should be out of the courtroom, and that these judges should be thrown to the rubbish bin, and all you know who is Moisychuk and how he acts. And there is no active court proceedings against Hadyak. Thank you very much, dear colleagues. We end our press conference. Thank you very much for coming, and goodbye.
Колеги, на цьому робочий день в Українській